During this video, I'm going to be showing you how I have used alcohol inks and my favourite stencil on the gel plate to create this type of technique. Now, alcohol inks are much thinner than acrylic paints and therefore much harder to control. When they're on the gel plate, they spread, they combine, colours mix together, and you really do have to embrace the unpredictability of the results. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Please drop me a comment below, let me know what you think or if you have any questions. And I will also drop a link below to join my newsletter if you are interested in my in-person workshops or my new online course. Let's get printing. Okay, so today I'm going to be using alcohol inks on the gel plate. So in front of me, I've got a selection of colours. I've got a turquoise, ultramarine blue, what's that one? Green and silver. I've got one of my favourite stencils that I'm going to use. It's a little bit smaller than the gel plate, so it's not going to cover the entire paper, but I'm happy with that. Something that you need to be aware of with alcohol inks is they stain anything that they touch. So I've got some gloves, I've got some baby wipes to clean up as I go along, and I've got my brayer and a little air blower to distribute the alcohol ink. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is give the alcohol inks a really good shake. I'm going to start by putting the stencil down on my gel plate and giving it a really good press down so it really kind of holds onto the gel plate as best as that I can. You don't want areas that are lifting up if at all possible, because the ink is going to go underneath. So what I'm going to do now is just put a small amount of alcohol ink in the gaps. Now, for this technique with the alcohol inks, a stencil that has smaller gaps works better than a stencil that has large gaps, because it's a much bigger area to fill with ink. So you can see I'm putting a small amount of ink in random gaps throughout the stencil. And then what I'm going to use is the blower, the air blower, to distribute that ink around the holes of the stencil. So what I'm trying to do is get the ink to kind of puddle and form around the edges of the circles to define them. So I went in first there with the blue alcohol ink. I think it's ultramarine blue. And I'm just going to repeat this process with the turquoise ink, which is next, and then finally the silver ink. I decided not to use the green in the end because we've got a good coverage with those three colours. So you don't want to overdo the amount of ink. The more ink you put on, the more it will puddle and the longer it will take to dry. So when you've got a nice even coverage on there, don't overdo it with the ink. And you can see I've just sped this up a little bit to show you me distributing that ink around. So I'm going in with the final colour silver, giving it a little shake there. Really disappointed with how the silver came out. What happened is I didn't shake the bottle enough. Often with the metallic inks, they separate, so you need to give them a much longer shake than what I did. Obviously, it just wasn't enough. So all that happened with the silver is it made the darker blue lighter, so it gave us more tone in the blue, but it didn't. I totally lost that metallic, so that wasn't such a great result. So again, just using that air blower to distribute that ink around. Now what you need to do is let this dry for about 2 or 3 minutes before you remove that stencil. And then once the stencil is removed, leave it to fully dry. Once it's fully dry, I'm using white opaque paint, just a small amount, and using my brayer to apply a thin coat of paint that covers that alcohol ink. Now you don't want to overwork this acrylic paint because it will reactivate the dry alcohol inks and start to become a muddy mess. So minimal kind of pressure on the roller, just getting a nice thin even coverage before laying down my cartridge paper that's come from a sketchbook and giving it a good rub, leaving it to dry for a few minutes on the plate. I think I left it for about 5 minutes on the plate. You can see when I pull the print back from the plate, it's got quite a good resistance, which means it's properly dry, which is what you're looking for. And there you have it, the final print. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. You can see from the close-up there's some quite nice definition around the shapes of the stencil. Those larger, denser areas of colour is where the alcohol ink is seeped under the stencil, so there's not quite as much definition. I hope you've enjoyed watching.